I've noticed that birds are part of your practice.
Birds, I think birds are the coolest thing. Really highly cool thing.
I mean, there is something of what, like I see a bird and for some reason like that Zen word suchness comes to mind because they just are what they are and they're unmistakably so.
Yeah, and to me they're fascinating from an engineering scientific design standpoint. I mean, that they can do what they can do. I watch them flying in, landing on the feeder, and the way they come down so nonchalantly and come in and land something impossibly difficult, stop, do their task, and fly away in such an elegant and thoughtless way, a not thinking way. There's no pondering. You never see them complaining or whining. There's no some bird sitting off to the side saying, "Oh, how come I can't get to the feeder now? How come they're..."
Oh, there he goes again.
There he goes again. He's
I've been waiting here all afternoon.
Why is he going to the feeder?
I had my eye on that sunflower seed.
That's right, exactly. You never see that. I mean, the birds never sit around and complain. They just do their thing. They're constantly present. They do a magnificent physiological thing and are always present. They're not any place except right now doing what they're doing.
But Gary, the planning ego is necessary for any truly kind of complicated enterprise. I mean, an interesting experiment would be as if you could somehow, using, say, magnetic stimulation, induce like activity in the default node network of birds at a distance, and then watch as the chaos ensues. Now, first of all, they'd just be flying into the.
That's right.
They wouldn't be paying any attention. Right. They'd be looking at their phones,
crashing into the walls.
Right. They would be arguing over the interpretation of like different stories.
That's right. Exactly.
They'd probably form sports teams.
They'd probably form sports teams, different colors of hats. They have red.
Oh, they've got hats. They do have the different colored hats and so forth. But it is true. I mean, like that we often talk about the way in which everything can be a teacher. Yeah. But I think we overlook the way in which simply observing the way in which different parts of nature manifest. Yeah. It's extraordinary teaching about the nature of reality. Not just the nature of birds, but this idea that we have in our heads that somehow there needs to be somebody there who's in charge and knows what's going on in order to do anything impressive.
And you watch them, and there's nobody in charge there. There is no little bird head inside doing a big egoic structure discussion. It doesn't happen. And yet they're fantastically capable in their environment.
But in the spring, they get together and they argue with each other about the best design for a nest, right? I haven't seen them, but I'm imagining that they have little blueprints, and then they go, okay, all right, you carry the twigs. I mean, because you couldn't possibly build anything without a plan, right? You got to have a plan.
But the amazing thing is, genetically, they build they've never seen one. They were in one, they came out of it, they have babies, they come back, they start building the same nest Mom made. And then they didn't see Mom build it, but they can build one.
Yeah, well, we're totally different from that, Gary.
No, but they put these elegant structures for raise their babies, and yet their babies never seen one built. And their babies come back and build the same thing themselves.
But it feels like human beings actually have these very similar kind of epigenetic structures where we actually build our lives, not so many nests. Like we don't build homes based on the homes that we grew up in. But we build our lives with the same kind of unconscious structures that our parents had. And we do it with the same level of alacrity and precision, that they do with their nests. Like I have a habit of, if I have a napkin, I crumple it up in my hand and I'm just holding it for a really long time. And then anytime I hang out with my dad, I look at my dad and he's got a napkin crumpled up in his hand. Or the way I walk, or, all these things. So if we reflect on our own behavior, actually, most of what we're doing is closer to that automatic construction of nests than we're aware. But we just have this internal narrative going on that tells us that we're in control. It's like, well, I decided to crumple up that napkin in my hand. It's useful. I might need it. Not that I'm just an unfolding of another nest-building Doyle. Of the like my father and my mother.
Yeah, but a recent blog post on that. Current neuroscience. We're almost totally non-consciously operating.
Phew.
Well, and you watch the narrative.
Yeah.
We've talked before. Watch the narrative, And the narrative is like a parallel universe. I mean, the body's doing fantastically complicated things. This is astonishingly complicated.
Yeah.
And yet it goes on with alacrity, with great ease and beauty. And yet we're up here talking about, well, I saw that movie last night. Marcia said, well, I'm going to have this for dinner. This has
I
nothing,
couldn't believe she said
has
that.
nothing to do with what's going on in your world. Nothing. It's a whole parallel, dysfunctional universe, a dystopia up there.
Insofar as it involves us.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the beautiful thing is, to loop around what birds don't seem to have,
Birds don't have.
is that when the self-referential part, whether it's when it's no longer about why did she say that, or what am I going to do about this, or what if this happens, and I still can't believe how unfair that was in the past, and the ideas just flow, then you have this unbelievable cascade of the imagination that's just going on at all times that you don't identify with any more than you identify with the bird out the window. But it's as beautiful as watching the birds. You watch this waterfall of thoughts that are going, and you thought, what is that? What is that about? And the imagination has this attribute of the infinite. And so, you know, if we could, you know, let ourselves be a little bit like the birds, you know, not only by observing them, then we would observe what is about us that's so beautiful. You know, what kind of nests are we building that are so remarkable that we're doing without knowing it?
Well, and the enormous creativity that our species is capable of.
Yeah.
If they can get this narrative out of the way, if they can stop this dystopic vision going on up here and let the really magnificent part of this huge process, the elephant processor, function without encumbrance, and let this creativity and this spontaneity emerge, unbelievably magnificent thing can happen. Or they cannot happen if you overwhelm it with this topic, blah, 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 going on all the time.
No, because I get this a lot from people. They say, well, look, you know, that's all well and good. You know, sometimes we get comments on the videos too. It's like, but what about knowledge workers, you know?
Yeah.
And people say, but I make my living off of ideas. And I say, well, all the more reason. I like, imagine you're saying that to the birds, like, but I make my living off of building nests. Like, yes, you do. All the more reason why you should just let the nest manifest. Let the ideas manifest.
Right.
The more you think that it's you doing the doing, the less interesting the ideas are and the less frequently they manifest.
Exactly. And the less functional you become.